And we're live. Okay. Hello. Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. And then I post these videos up when I think about it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They have over 30,000 therapists working for them. I've gotten great feedback from people using them. So thank you, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. Okay. So much has happened in this last week. So I'll start off with the people that we've lost this week, and then I'm going to go on to a more serious thing that's going on this week. So, we lost a lot of people this week. Chuck Mangione and Ozzy Osbourne and all of these people that we really loved. And people don't understand when a celebrity dies, if we as survivors of abuse, as survivors of trauma, if we have found solace in their art, or, oh God, I'm going to start crying, or in their being, or how they are, that death to us is as personal as if we knew them, which I know sounds crazy, but think about it. When we were being raised by abusive people, we had to look outside of our family for somebody to give us hope. And so a lot of us would turn to musicians and actors and sports people and things like that. And they became a part of our growing up. I used to listen to Chuck Mangione all the time. I love Ozzy Osbourne. You guys know that. He reminded me so much of my mom. It's not when they did, okay, real quick little diatribe here. When Jack did the Jack and Ozzy's World Detour, oh my God, that was so comforting to watch, because that little interaction between the two of them reminded me so much of my mom and I, because we would do that, and Ozzy sitting there doing his coloring and his pencil coloring and things like that. My mom would work crossword puzzles. It was kind of very similar. And that little look in his eye that he would get when he did something naughty that he knew he shouldn't be doing, but he did anyway. My mom would do that too. So it's been a hard week for those of us who have lost celebrities this week that we related to, or that we enjoyed, or that reminded us of good family and reminded us of hope and things like that. So don't ever let anybody, that's the word I'm looking for, denigrate or put down or make fun of you for grieving the loss of a celebrity. I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand that we had to substitute celebrities for our family, because our family was full goose bozo. That's the kindest thing I can say. So yeah, so there was that. And I'm very sad that Ozzy's gone. I really am. He had his problems. Oh, for sure. His relationship with Sharon, was it the healthiest? Probably not. But he turned himself around. He got himself clean and sober. He donated tons of money to charities. He loved his family, obviously. And I think that's what I really loved, is that you could tell how much he loved those kids and those grandkids and the puppies and, everything else. So I'm sad. I'm really, really sad. And I'm sorry he's gone. So allow yourself to grieve when somebody important to us, whether we knew them or not, departs this mortal coil. It is okay to grieve, and it is okay to acknowledge that you miss them and you're sad. And yeah. So just remember that I think, honest to God, I think trauma survivors go through grief a little differently than the average person, because the average person didn't have to look outside of themselves, their family, to find somebody that was kind, or a father figure, or, nice, or a mother figure, or, whatever. So cut yourself some slack. Just be gentle with you. And if anybody gives you any problems, you can personally tell them that I am giving them a virtual throat punch. Seriously, it's like sit down and shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel the feels. It's okay to mourn the loss of somebody you didn't know because they meant something to you. And that's what matters. So, and anybody who stops you, oh, I've red flag on the play. What the? No way. So, just saying that. All right. The second important current event is Ghislaine Maxwell, or however the hell you say that demon's name, is not, listen to me now, believe me now, not a victim. She was a damn ass adult. She was a predator, an abuser. She abused those girls along with Epstein. There's evidence of that. I'm not going to get sued because it's documented. And by the way, why aren't we talking to the victims? Why aren't we talking to them to get the story instead of going to the predator to get the story? Hello? She is not a victim. She is not a victim. If you have ever worked with sex trafficking victims, you will know that they generally have, it's good cop, bad cop. They have somebody, some accomplice that's there to, oh, it's safe. Oh, it's a woman. Oh, they're kind. Oh, they're da-da-da. It's not going to be as bad because there's a woman there or something like that. They'll good cop, bad cop. They do that all the time. So, and this woman groomed these girls. Absolutely. She made it safe for them. I'm fairly certain that afterwards she did the whole, I'll comfort you. You can't tell anybody. They'll hurt me, blah, blah, blah. Do you see where I'm going with that? That is what sex traffickers do. It is psychological warfare. And there are female predators, hello, out there. Oh my God. She is not a victim. She is a predator and she deserves to be locked up and the key thrown the frick away. That's all I got to say about that. And I swear to God, what a middle finger to the victims of sex trafficking if they give her a pardon. Seriously, how dare they even think about it? Don't get me started. Ooh. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So every sex trafficking ring has got someone there to manage the women, the boys that they are abusing, use the psychological manipulation, be the softer one, be the comforter, be the, whatever. She is not innocent. She's an adult. She knew what she was doing. She's a freaking predator and she needs to go to hell. ASAP. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Thank you for playing. Bye-bye. So there is my opinion on that. So that is what's going on in the news. If you are inclined, I suggest you write your senators and let them know that you're not okay with them pardoning, however the hell you say that bitch's name, Ghislaine, Griselda, whatever, Maxwell. That's what I think of her. So anyway, there's that. Okay. On to another serious topic. Okay. Bad therapists. We've all had them. Dear Lord, we've all had them. Sometimes you just walk in, you sit down, you start talking to them and you're like, I don't relate. There is no rapport there. I just, not happening. So what do you do if you have a therapist where you have no rapport? Well, pretty simple. You simply tell them, I don't feel I have any rapport with you. Thank you very much for your time. This will be our last session. And you go and look for another therapist. That is insanely difficult for a lot of us to do if we have come from an abusive relationship, because we're not used to saying no to an authority figure. And a lot of people look at therapists as an authority figure. Here's the deal. You are paying them to help you. If you are not feeling it, you absolutely have the right to say, I'm not feeling it. I don't think you and I are a good match. Thank you for your time. It's a great first session. It's good to know. I'm going to look for another therapist. And that's okay. I am not everybody's cup of tea. I am not, which is why I try to be as blunt as possible when people are talking to me, because it's like, that's how I am. It's like, I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff. I'm not going to hold your hand. I am going to tell you how it is, and I'm going to give you a homework assignment. I'm going to expect you to do it. Because if you want to get better, you got to change. And I tell people that. Now, the ones who are okay with that and hang with it, right on. I also let them know I swear like a sailor. Haven't been able to swear like a sailor on YouTube. Don't get me started. But that's how I talk. Every other word is an F Where's my F bombs? I don't know. My dogs took off with them. Anyway, so she did. She took off with my F bombs. I'm like, really? You've got toys. Anyway, so the point being is when you're looking for a therapist, I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to do a little bit of, okay, you're a client with a bad therapist. I'm also going to do, you're a therapist and you recognize a colleague. Is a bad therapist. What do you do? So let's deal with the clients first. So I personally like doing the 15-minute interview because, hello, Moana, because then I can hear on the phone or, FaceTime, whatever, whether or not we're going to be a good fit or not. Okay. So for example, I had one lady call me and she's like, I really don't like swearing and I'm looking for a Christian counselor. And I'm like, well, I'm not the one for you. Let me refer you. And so I gave her 3 different referrals because I'm Buddhist and I swear like a sailor. So, that would just not be a good match. Second I dropped an F-bomb, I'm sure there would be pearl clutching, which is okay. So she told me what she needed. I let her know I wasn't a right fit and I gave her somebody who I thought would be. So that's what you do. That's why you want those 15-minute consults to kind of talk to the person to make sure that what you're offering is what they need. Because sometimes what you're offering is not what they need. Sometimes they need something else, So I get very upset because I've been hearing so many things. Dear God. So because the whole big ugly bill thing, agencies in the Valley are letting go of therapists, like a ton of therapists. Like I was listening to somebody from the board the other day, and they were saying how Jewish Family Services has let go of 2,000 people, and what was the other one? It was Jewish Family Services and Southwest, I think it was, and it's because of the Medicaid, Medicare. So they're letting go of therapists. So getting a good therapist is going to become a little more difficult. Now, if you're paying out of pocket, it's probably going to be easier. I don't take insurance. I don't like messing with a middleman. And I really resent having to explain to some pencil neck geek who doesn't know the DSM from a hole in the ground, this is the diagnosis, and have them go, pee on that. You know what? Go blow it out. This is why I don't work with insurance. No, thank you. So just letting you know, that's what's going on. So they've stopped doing, a lot of agencies have stopped doing that initial consult. They've stopped doing that, give me a call, let's talk, let's make sure we're a good fit. And instead, they're just booking them straight out and not bothering to see if it's a good fit or not. So I'm warning you now, if you don't get an initial consult, if you don't have that initial good rapport or good feeling, you're probably going to waste one episode, one session talking to the therapist to see if it's a good fit. I hate to say it, but that's probably what's going to happen. So, okay, so bad therapist. So now we've talked about, okay, it's not a good fit. What do? You go find another therapist. It is perfectly okay to fire your therapist. It is 110%. I have had people fire me when we've gotten into it and they're like, I don't want to do the homework. This isn't right. I don't want to do. Okay, well, let me give you some referrals and you go about your merry way and I'll find somebody else, or somebody else will find me who actually wants help. So, yeah. And a lot of times that's what it is. It's like they expect the therapist to do literally everything. And that is not what therapists do. So let me explain how therapists work. I will get to your questions at the end. Do not worry. So therapy, the way I like to describe therapy is I am a whitewater rafting guide. That's what I am. I am standing up in the back of the boat, letting y'all know where the rocks are and the submerged things are. And we need to go this way to avoid that problem. And we need to go that way to avoid this problem. And, let's talk about why there are submerged things here, that kind of thing. So it's like a whitewater rafting guide. And occasionally the whitewater rafting guide will kind of steer the boat to kind of help. But that's not the job the whole time. It's to help you figure out where the rocks are, where the submerged things are, so that you steer the boat, so that in case I fall overboard, y'all have got this. That's my whole job. It's like I hand you the tools and I teach you how to use them so that when I'm not around and stuff goes sideways, you can go, wait a minute, I got a tool for that. And then you do it. That is what good therapy is. Bad therapy, bad therapy is like, there are therapists out there that will keep clients for literally decades. Those are usually the psychoanalysts. They don't so much do that anymore because insurance won't let them and it's prohibitive out of pocket. But literally 25 years on a couch. I think that's ridiculous. You should be giving people tools and helping them figure it out, and they should be moving along fairly quickly, like within 1 year, 3 if there's a lot of trauma and a lot of things going on. But and sometimes people just want that, what's the word I'm looking for? They want that security blanket of having somebody to run by, like a sounding board kind of thing, which is okay. But, it's good if they can do it on their own. Does that make sense? So the ones I don't like are the therapists that tell the client what they're feeling. I'm sorry, are you them? No, you're not. Or the ones who are the gurus. Oh, let's talk about that, shall we? So narcissists are insanely attracted to my profession. Why? Because it's a position of power. It is. And they think that being a therapist is telling people what to do. It's not. It's guiding people, it's teaching them. A lot of what I do is psychoeducational. A lot of what I do is let's read the self esteem book together and work it together so that you can ask me any questions that you have in vitro, so that's kind of the thing. Narcissists are attracted to it because they think it's a position where they know everything and they sit on the mountaintop and tell everybody what to do. No, that is not therapy. That's advice giving. That's very different. It's like people will ask me for my advice and my first question back to them is, well, what do you think you should do? Because really, I want them to start figuring it out for themselves. And then if it's an answer that's going to be not a good idea, then I'll be like, okay, let's think about this logically all the way out to the end. So you would do this. What about this? What do you think? And then we work together. It is a collaborative relationship. Narcissists are not collaborative. I don't know if you've ever tried to co-parent with one, but you figured out they're not collaborative. They don't collaborate. They don't play well with others. They run with scissors. It's not a good thing. So it's a collaborative relationship. It is a working together to build a strong base so that when the therapist steps out, this person has got a great base. They've got all the tools. They know how to use them. They trust their gut and they're able to go sailing through their lives. Now, do I have clients come back occasionally? Yeah. And usually when something major life event happens, like a death or a divorce or things like that. So, so basically you want a therapist that you've got a good rapport with and that is collaborative and that gives you encouragement, that believes in you. Listen, clients do know how to heal themselves. Most of them do know how to heal themselves. And I think it is a disservice to act as if they don't. They may have forgotten temporarily. They may not trust temporarily that they do have the ability to heal themselves, but they do. So it's just like when somebody goes to the doctor and they go, something's wrong. And the doctor writes them off. And then it turns out, no, mother clucker, there was something wrong. Why didn't you listen to them? It's the same thing. So if a client is going, well, this is the thought. Okay, well, let's start dealing with that thought. What's going on? Tell me your inner world. Let's work this through. So, that's the thing. You trust the client to kind of lead where you need to go. And it's amazing the results that you get when you allow them to have a safe space. That's the other thing. You need to feel safe when you're doing therapy to express things that they may not have expressed ever or are just now being able to say out loud. So that is good therapy. Bad therapists shut people down. Don't listen to them. Act like a guru. I mean, like, so for example, if a client comes to me and says, I don't like the workbooks. I don't like it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we'll do something different and I'll try that. And if that doesn't work, then I'll have to refer them out to some other therapist. Probably EMDR would be good, or EFT, emotional freedom therapy. So, there is that. So, but then there's the ones that are just like, I don't want to have to do anything. You do all the work and I'm supposed to magically get better. And I'm like, this is not psychotherapy and psychotherapy doesn't work. So you're going to have to do the work. So there is that. Okay. So if you have a bad therapist, so rapport, trusting the client, working with the client, collaborative, that's all good therapy. If you've got a really bad therapist, if you've got one that's unethical, here's the deal. Okay, if you have a therapist that makes you feel it isn't safe to go back to the therapist, so they were unreasonably harsh, they were nasty, they were putting you down, they made you feel unsafe, anything like that. Narcissists will do that. I have had run-ins with people in my profession that do that kind of thing, and they get in trouble with the board, as well they should. So you want to feel safe in your therapy session. You do not want to feel unsafe. If you feel like you need to keep other people safe from them. Now, here's the thing. If something happens in a therapy session, the first thing to do, like say something was said, it hit wrong, you didn't like it, it made you think, you were like, ooh, I don't know, I didn't like the way that felt. The first thing to do, if you trust your therapist, and this goes back to the safety thing, is you bring it up to the therapist. You absolutely bring it up to the therapist. So, for example, when we are digging into dysfunctional families, and I make a suggestion that, well, have you ever thought, you're always focusing in on this person. Have you considered this person's stuff? And they come unglued and then they ruminate on it and they're angry and all of that. I want to quit therapy, da 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 da. Well, then I'm going, okay, well, talk to me. What's going on? And then we start talking, and it turns out that this is the inner child thing, and they're freaking out because it wasn't safe to confront this other person that was abusing them. So you always bring it back up to the therapist if you feel safe. Now, the inner child is always going to tell you it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe. But that's when you have to kind of be like, wait a minute. I've seen this therapist for a while. They've always listened to me. They're a safe place. So you bring stuff back up to the therapist and we work it through. And if an apology is needed, I absolutely will apologize. Wow, I did phrase that a little harshly. I'm sorry. I'll be more cognizant next time. So do you see where I'm going with that? You give the therapist an opportunity to make amends. You give the therapist the opportunity to fix, or you give the opportunity for the therapist to help you go through whatever happened to kind of figure out why that triggered you so badly. So there is that. Okay. Okay. If you can't do that, then you need to absolutely end the relationship. The therapist does something so obviously wrong that you cannot imagine talking about it would accomplish anything. Okay. That's so, like, for example, if you've got a therapist who's just an absolute narcissist and it's I, me, more, and they're never wrong and they never discuss things and they never work things through, then yeah, you might want to just be like, and we are done. That's perfectly okay. You can fire your therapist. Now, when is it worth filing a complaint? Okay, the therapist has violated major ethical violations, such as having a sexual relationship with you, had sexual contact with you, or made sexual advances towards you. And I know a lot of people are like, what? You would be surprised. If you ever want your mind blown, go sit in on a day when the board is going through board complaints. Most of them are sexual. Most of them are therapists having inappropriate relationships with their clients, which to me is just heinous beyond belief, because there's a power differential. And who does things like that? Say it with me, narcissists, you betcha. So the other thing they get dinged for is borrowing money from clients. Oh my God, going into business with a client. That's all unethical. This is all covered in the ACA Code of Ethics, which don't even. I told you about the classmate that I went through my master's program with. It was like, but I don't understand. When they're not a client anymore, why can't we date them? And all of us turned and looked and was like, what are you even smoking right now? Oh my God. So, yeah, there are people out there going through the programs that do manage to get their licenses somehow. And yeah, they will violate ethics because, again, with a psychopath, with a narcissist, with a control freak, the rules don't apply. So, yeah, a lot of the violations are sexual or monetary. The therapist crosses personal boundaries in some way, resulting in a dual relationship in which they misuse their power or role. So they're buddy buddy with you outside the session. You can't do that. The therapist violated your confidentiality by sharing information. The therapist abandoned you by with you without giving you notice or time to find a new therapist. Now, when you end a relationship with a client or a client decides to leave or you end the relationship with the client, you generally let them know, it's like, this is not working. I'm not helping you. This is not good for you. Let me give you 3 referrals, and then you give them 3 referrals and you offer them one more session so that they can find a client, unless, caveat, you feel endangered. Now, that would be if a client has been threatening or, threatening to hurt you, threatening to harm you, in which case you give them 3 referrals and you send them on their merry way because it is no longer safe. So there is that. Therapists tried to provide a service they weren't qualified or trained to provide. So, for example, people who go and get a weekend certificate in EMDR and then declare themselves EMDR therapists. That's not, no, you've had a sampling. You're not an EMDR therapist until you get the full training. So there is that. This is why I'm always telling people, always ask for what the credentials are. A therapist who provided service that weren't therapy or that were experimental, harmful, or dangerous. So that would be like conversion therapy, which is illegal in the state of Arizona. Thank you very much. So yeah, there's that. Therapists that tried to involve you in illegal behavior, engaged in illegal behavior in front of you, such as a business, financial, or insurance fraud. Therapists didn't explain what they were doing or why, such as not telling you that they were part of an experiment that they were conducting. Therapists said things or took actions towards you that were clearly racist, homophobic, sexist, or otherwise overtly discriminatory. That's when you turn them into the board. So there is that. So okay, so I hope that answers your questions on what to do if you get a bad therapist. Basically, it's all about, do you feel safe with them? Do you feel secure with them? Do you feel like you can tell them literally anything? Because that's really kind of our job. So there is that. If you have questions, just put question and then I will answer it at the end. So now we're going to switch gears. What do you do if you are a therapist and you have a coworker that is being unethical? So if you are working in an agency, unfortunately, you have to follow the chain of command, meaning you need to document everything that's going on. You need to gather witnesses. You need to have an ability to back up what you're saying. It cannot just be a he said, she said thing. You then go to your supervisor and you express your concerns, okay? It's just, this is why I don't work in agencies. Every morning I have a meeting in the mirror while I'm brushing my teeth, and that's about as much of a meeting as I can stand. So yeah, you got to document. You got to make sure that you have witnesses. Make sure that somebody that's willing to back you up. And that may be hard if you're planning on complaining about a coworker, but if they're unethical and they're hurting clients, you got to do it. You then go to your supervisor. You then lay it out. You may want to start looking for another job because oftentimes abusers will circle the wagons and protect those that are not worthy of being protected and then go after the whistleblower, as we all know, in narcissistic families. So, okay, hold on just a second. You consult with your manager. You go through the appropriate channels. The ACA, American Mental Health Counseling Association, AMHCA, Codes of Ethics suggests that attempting to resolve the situation formally with the coworker is the initial step. However, if this fails or is not appropriate, report the appropriate state licensing board and/or ethics committee is necessary. So yeah, after you've tried to talk to the coworker, then you go to your supervisor, or you go to your supervisor first and let them know you're going to talk to the coworker. That's what I would do. And then talk to the coworker. If that does not go well, then you go to the board and you file a complaint. So there is that. If the concerns persist or the internal reporting mechanisms are insufficient, you have to report to the board. You must have your evidence together. There will be a board hearing. It probably will not be dismissed, especially if you have written evidence and witnesses, etc. Let's see. Yeah, so be prepared. You could have reprisals. You could lose your job. That's happened. Get support. So my big thing is with anything, you always, always, always talk to other counselors. Talk to your colleagues. Make sure you are collaborating with other therapists if you have questions. So, for example, if I have a client that I'm just like stumped, it's like, okay, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Nothing is working. What is going on? I will call up my colleagues and I'll be like, hi, Anna, do you have time to have lunch? Because I got to run a case by you, and I'll work it through. So it's always a good thing to have other therapists that you can go and talk to and talk this through. So, and to get, advice and to get support and things like that. So basically, we are required to report any therapist that is doing unethical behavior or harmful behavior to the client. So, for example, if we see a therapist out with their client doing a dual relationship, yeah, you absolutely document and report 110%. That is totally against the ACA and the AMHCA Code of Ethics. You betcha. So anyway, there is that. I hope that answered the question. So basically, there are bad therapists out there. There are therapists that just do not know what they're doing. There are therapists that are narcissists. There are therapists that are in it for the wrong reasons, there to figure themselves out as opposed to helping other people figure themselves out. You got to trust your gut. If you have a good rapport with somebody, then that's a pretty good sign. But it's got to be more than just the report. They've got to be able to help move you along so that you are growing. That's what you want. So there is that. Okay, so let me get to the questions. But before I do, I just wanted to let you know, YouTube is doing the Watusi again. They are not notifying everybody every time I have a video. So if you could make sure that you hit the subscribe, hit the like, all of that stuff. I'm losing people left, right, and center. I have a feeling they want me to shut up. It's not going to happen. So anyway, there is that. All right, let me go to the questions. Okay, my last therapist told me that psychopaths are very nice people who tend to go to a psychologist to talk about their deep, complex feelings. I found it alarming. Are therapists allowed to lie? No, absolutely not. Psychopaths are not very nice people. They're psychopaths. They go to psychologists to see if they can fool them. This is a game for them. This is why narcissists go to counselors when they have to, and they will see if they can manipulate the counselor, if they can charm the counselor, if they can get the counselor on their side. When I did couples therapy, God, I hated doing couples. So first of all, everybody waited until it was too late. Second of all, almost all of them were married to abusers. Third of all, it's like the abuser will then try to charm the therapist. And when that doesn't work, they storm out of the session about third time or so because they're not getting their way. Their game is totally viewable. Everybody sees it. They don't like that. So no, it's a game to them. So if you've ever watched or read anything on forensic psychology, over and over and over again, they will talk about how dangerous psychopaths are because they are charming. Ted Bundy, anyone. They will see if they can manipulate. They will see if they can control the situation. It is a game for them. They are not there for self enlightenment. They're there because they're playing a game. Absolutely. 100%. So there that is. Okay, workbooks are helpful, but in Spain, they don't like the professional workbooks you suggest. If a therapist doesn't like or use professional workbooks you suggest, how can we get help using those workbooks? You can work them on your own. That's what I do, is like I suggest the workbooks. I will work the self-esteem workbook with the person to kind of help them get through it, because self-esteem, think about it. If we lived in a family where self-esteem was not only not given, but actively discouraged, okay, the self-esteem workbook can be as triggering or more so than any of the other workbooks that I recommend. Because now you're confronting the basic assumption. The basic assumption is, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that, the inner critic, right? So working through the self-esteem workbook with somebody can be very helpful. But basically, you can do it on your own. You just need to be aware of that inner critic that is going to try to stop you because it's scared, because it's the inner child workbook. So you work those workbooks on your own, okay? If they don't like them, ask them what they suggest. Okay, you don't like these workbooks? What do you suggest? Maybe you need to find a different therapist, So there's that. Okay. All right. Is it common for a therapist to be disinterested in his or her work? Only with narcissists. I swear to God, I have seen some of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Callous, disinterested, jaded, I think is the word I'm looking for. I never want to get jaded, ever, ever. I love the fact that every client to me is infinitely fascinating. And, and it's like, how can I help them? What can I do to help them help themselves? So it's always interesting to me. So when you have a therapist that is disinterested, jaded, been there, done that, no emotion. Oh God, I hate those therapists. So there is still out there a whole bunch of schools turning therapists out that basically say, oh, you should never, be animated or have a sense of humor or anything else like that. To that I say, no. You know what? People relate to that. People relate to the sense of humor. They relate to the animation. They relate to the fact that I give a flying rat's hind end. So if they're disinterested, no, they're not going to help you, because if they're disinterested, they're disinterested. They're not thinking in their head, they're telling me this. I wonder, let's ask this question. Do you see where I'm going with that? That's what you want. You want somebody who's actively always going, okay, what's the next right step? What's the next right way to help this client? How can I get this client to help themselves? That's what you want. If they're disinterested, that's an ego thing. That is an ego thing. That is totally an ego thing. The ones I've seen that have been disinterested, jaded, made fun of the clients, like made fun of them, like not just describing, oh gosh, this client's really difficult to work with because of whatever, but like, and it's like, no. We're not going to do that. No, thank you. So yeah, that's not a good therapist. Disinterest is not what you want. You want somebody who is, hi, good to see you. So what's new? What's exciting? What's happening? What's going on? That is the first words out of my mouth. When I see my clients, I want to know what's new, what's happening, what's exciting, what's going on. And sometimes they're like, oh man, nothing good or exciting is happening. Oh gosh. Okay, well, what is happening? Opens the doorway to a huge conversation. Do you see where I'm going with that? Because I care, because I'm interested, because I want to know so I can help them. Does that make sense? Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. The therapist, was barely engaging and only said, that's interesting, or repeated what they said. Yeah, that is classic old school psychotherapy. You do not want that. You do not want that. So somebody who's just like, uh-huh, 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 interesting. Uh-huh. Are you getting anything from them? No. You want somebody who's like, ooh, okay, wait, go back to what you just said. Tell me more about. Do you see where I'm going with that? Because just the client sitting there talking is not going to heal them. That's classic psychotherapy, which is why it didn't work, Woody Allen. So, it's like you got to engage to get them to engage so that they're working on stuff with you, right? So that they can have epiphanies to move forward and bloom and blossom and grow. That's what you want. So if they're just disinterested, you're not going to get that. Because, like, when I listen to stories, my mind flags things that have been said that I need to go back and revisit because, ooh, this is something they're glossing over. I need to go back to this. Do you see where I'm going with that? That's what you want. You want somebody who is engaged. You want somebody who is present. You want somebody who is mindful. You want somebody who is wanting that best outcome for that client. That's what you want. So, all right. Okay. I think that is all the questions, if I am not mistaken. So, next week, I want to talk about learned helplessness and the inner critic. Because that inner critic, I just throat punch it. So, I want to talk about learned helplessness. I can't, nothing's good, nothing's right, blah, 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 blah. So, we got to talk about that because that's going to keep you stuck like nobody's business. So it's going to be learned helplessness, inner critic. So we got to shut those two things down. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff to do that. All right, my loves, you guys go have a great week and I will talk to you on Sunday. All right, take care, drink plenty of water, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.